Welcome to Rifle Shooting Seminars. This is our final session. Today's topic is on how to train to become a better shot. Practice makes perfect. This is true for every single endeavor, shooting included. The easiest way to get better at shooting is to simply spend more time behind the gun. If the only time you shoulder the gun is during the once or twice a month the club meets, you're not likely to get very far. Getting behind the gun could be either firing live ammunition on the range or dry firing at home. We'll cover the ins and outs of both types of training. Personally, I spend at least 30 minutes of dry firing first thing every morning. And at times in my shooting career, I try to go to the range a lot more often. Ahead of major competitions, I would drive to the range first thing in the morning almost every day, shoot for an hour, and then get to work at around 10 or 11. It helped that the companies that I worked for weren't strict about when I showed up. If you think that's a lot, take a look at what Olympic shooters do. I just read an article a few days ago. The Swiss Olympic team, in order to prepare for the upcoming World Cup season, conducted a shoot camp in which they trained 12 hours a day and shot 5,000 rounds per week. It is very common for Olympic level shooters to train at least 8 hours a day. Training is literally their job. Normal folks like us can't and don't need to spend this much time on it. Even a couple dry firing sessions a week can make a big difference, as long as you can keep it up. Training isn't just about putting a lot of rounds downrange. That's called plinking. Mind you, plinking is better than nothing. But to make good progress, we need to have some structure. Generally, when we train, we're working on the following two things. First, we're developing a stable position, which is what we covered in session 2. The goal here is to achieve a stable sight picture that doesn't move. We arrive at this level of stability by tuning the equipment and various aspects of our position. Knowing how to align the natural point of aim is also critical. Each person's position is going to be different due to our unique body proportions. Use the guidelines and principles described in session 2 as a starting point and develop a position that works for you. Once your position is in a good spot, you'll be spending most of your time on the shot plan. We started talking about the shot plan in the last session. The shot plan is a personalized list of everything that you have to do to make a good shot. Having a shot plan makes good shots repeatable, and repeatability is what target shooting is all about. Just about every top shooter has a shot plan. When we train, we develop the shot plan, refine it over time, and then drill the shot plan over and over again so that we carry out the shot plan in every shot without having to think about it. Both the position and the shot plan are subject to a lifetime of continuous refinement. As you learn more about shooting, you'll find yourself going back to each of them from time to time to make adjustments. If you don't have a shot plan right now, here's a basic one to start with. These are essentially the fundamentals of shooting that we covered in session 2. First, check the MPA. Close your eyes, relax, and open your eyes to verify that the front sight is at least horizontally aligned with the target. Respiratory pause. Take several deep breaths, and then hold your breath after exhaling. And then, while holding the sight picture centered, smoothly squeeze the trigger till it breaks like a surprise. Finally, follow through by not moving before the gun settles down, so that the bullet isn't disturbed while it travels down the bore. As you develop as a shooter, you'll be adding more and more steps to the shot plan. The fundamental principles of shooting are the same, but you add more details that help you better carry out these fundamentals. For example, this is my shot plan. I have steps in it that help me achieve a more consistent position, such as repositioning the butt plate and how to set down the elbow. There are steps that ensure consistent tensions. There is a step that tells me to check the target number so that I don't crossfire, and so on. Top shooters have shot plans that are even more detailed than this. As you persist in using a shot plan, your own shot plan will also grow over time. Now let's talk about live fire training. Here are the best practices when doing live fire training. Shoot only good shots. For every shot, the sight picture, and thus the position, needs to be perfectly still, and you must execute your shot plan perfectly. Keep in mind that you don't need to shoot a bad shot. We all feel a natural temptation to just press the trigger and get the current shot done and over with. A major objective of any training is to learn to resist this temptation. If anything doesn't feel right, for example, if the hold is wobbly or you're running out of breath, start the shot process over again. Remember, shooting good shots develops good habits. Allowing yourself to shoot bad shots perpetuates bad habits. Scores are secondary. Scores are important, but it matters how they are obtained. A lucky X is meaningless because luck is not reproducible. You want your 10s and X's to be the result of a stable position and perfectly executed shot plan. Only then can you reliably produce good results. As you train, you'll inevitably come across strings that are exceptionally good. When this happens, reflect on what you did right during those shots. Write your discovery down and incorporate it as steps in your shot plan. Live fire training is a perfect time to incorporate techniques that you learn from other shooters and literature. It is highly advisable to keep a shooting diary. In this diary, you would record your position and shot plan as they evolve, your thoughts and reflections, as well as your progress in terms of scores. We do a lot of practice firing in the club. Probably 90% of our shooting is practice. When we practice, most of us never leave the sighting mold in the electronic target. We shoot endless sighters. I would advise you all to do things a bit differently. After getting reasonably centered, always hit the begin record button and shoot a 10-shot string, even if you're just practicing. When you do so, you're simulating program or match shooting. This has numerous benefits. First, sighting shots are just a bunch of individual shots. Shooting a record string means that all the shots aggregate into an overall score, and this puts you into a completely different mindset. To make the training realistic, you always want your mindset to be as close to match conditions as possible. Secondly, knowing that shots matter in the overall score incentivizes you to dedicate more effort into each and every shot. Thirdly, being able to see the overall score gives you an idea of what your current level is. Are you an 80-point shooter? A 90-point shooter? Are you good enough to consistently medal? You won't know for sure unless you shoot a 10-shot record string in practice. Furthermore, 10-shot strings allow you to keep track of your progress over time. Reviewing them tells you whether you're making progress or stagnating. And if you are stagnating, it's time to try new things. As we said, live firing is a good time to try new techniques, but there's a right way and a wrong way of doing it. The wrong way is to try the new technique for 1 or 2 shots and declare that it doesn't work. 1 or 2 shots, be the results good or bad, isn't enough to tell us anything. Whenever you change something, be it enlarging your front iris or adopting a new cheek weld, your performance is likely to fall initially, simply because you're not used to it. You need to give yourself time to get used to the change. And this means that you need to shoot at least a few well-executed 10-shot strings before drawing any conclusions. Ideally, before you came to the range, you would have practiced the new technique at home, dry firing, so that you don't waste precious ammunition on acclimating. Sometimes, we're stuck at a certain level of performance because we're not sure whether further can be achieved with our rifle. And we do need confidence in the hardware before we can focus on making further progress. There's an easy way to find out though. Ask a good shooter in the club to shoot a string with your rifle. If you're shooting in the low 80s, and this shooter gets a 92 on the first run, you know the rifle is not a problem. You want to make sure that the other shooter has the best chance at success. Therefore, before handing the gun over, record the current settings on the gun and allow the other shooter to change things to suit them. This is a good opportunity to learn something from the other shooter's settings and potentially adopt them for yourself. We now move on to the subject of dry firing. Dry firing is an essential part of any training program. The obvious benefit of dry firing is that you can train without leaving your home. We can't make it to the range every day, but we may be able to dry fire every day. But even if you have unlimited range time, like professional shooters do, dry firing is still an indispensable tool because it allows you to focus on the techniques without being distracted by the scores. As we said before, when the techniques are right and consistently carried out, good scores naturally follow. Dry firing is also an essential part of preparing your position when live firing. When you get down to position on a live range, you should always dry fire a few shots to get yourself into the rhythm before starting your sighters. Dry firing can also be used to prepare yourself before range day so that you don't waste any time and ammo on reminding yourself what your shot plan is. To dry fire, you need to create a target at home. This is a piece of white paper set at the far end of the room with a scaled down aiming mark. This can simply be a black dot. There's no need for score rings. The target should be brightly lit to resemble daylight conditions. There's a huge difference between daylight and the average household lighting. Here I have a custom box with an LED light strip lighting up all four sides. Your setup could simply be lit by a table lamp, as long as the lighting is even around the aiming mark. Here's how to determine the size of the aiming mark. When in position, measure the distance in meters between your aiming eye and the target face. Know that it's the eye, not the muzzle of the gun. Divide this number by 300 meters to get a distance ratio. Multiply the distance ratio by 600 millimeters, which is the size of the aiming mark at 300 meters. The resulting number is the size of the aiming mark in millimeters. For example, if the target eye distance is 5 meters, the aiming mark should be 10 millimeters, because 5 meters is 1/60th of 300 meters. Due to various optical reasons, you might need to fine-tune the size to get a sight picture that truly resembles live firing. It's time well spent, because once you get the target size right, you can use it forever. Here are the basic best practices when doing dry fire training. As with live firing, you're working on achieving a stable sight picture and executing your shot plan perfectly. In dry fire, your focus is on drilling the position and shot plan that's been proven to work in previous live fire sessions. Again, working on shooting only good shots. When something's wrong, do not yield to the urge to shoot. Stop and start the process over again. You don't need to shoot a bad shot. It's possible to try out new techniques during live firing. I do this all the time. But there is a risk that a new technique may not work in live fire. Therefore, it is important to validate the techniques developed during dry firing on the range as soon as possible. An excellent dry firing exercise is what I call 10 good shots. The goal here is to shoot 10 perfectly executed shots. As a prerequisite, you need to have a paper in front of you with a checklist of shot plan steps. This could be the entire shot plan or a subset of the shot plan that you think you need to work on. After each shot, go over the checklist. If all the steps were followed, increment the shot count. If even one of the steps was not followed exactly, decrement the shot count. The shot count could go negative. Once you reach positive 10, you're done. What you're doing here is rewarding yourself for following the shot plan and punishing yourself for violating it. You thereby train yourself to always follow the shot plan and to always shoot good shots. Do this once every day, and you should make noticeable progress. Another good practice during dry firing is to keep a small whiteboard in your home range. On this whiteboard, you record a list of things to work on in the next dry fire session. Before each dry fire session, review the list on the whiteboard. If you're doing the 10 good shot exercise, the contents of the whiteboard could be the basis of your checklist. After each session, if you feel that there's something to improve on, update a list with new items to work on in the next session, and remove items that you already mastered. The whiteboard allows you to focus on the most important things and make steady progress. Various electronic training aids are available on the market that could make your dry fire sessions much more productive. Let's look at some of them. The most popular and powerful product of this kind, by a long mile, is SCAT. SCAT is used by almost all Olympic shooters around the world, and is also popular in other position shooting disciplines like NRA high power. It's basically a high-speed camera that tracks the movement of the aiming mark in its field of view. When your shot breaks, the SCAT software running on your phone or your computer plots the shot on a virtual target and gives you a trace of the muzzle movement. But scoring shots is SCAT's least important feature. Far more valuable is the fact that it captures various metrics that quantify your performance. These metrics tell you what you need to work on and allows you to track your performance over time. With SCAT, it is much easier to evaluate the effects of new techniques during dry firing. Of course, any technique for controlling recoil can only be evaluated during live fire. As a bonus, the SCAT software has a convenient feature to print scaled-down targets. It's what I use for this purpose. We've seen this video before. It demonstrates how SCAT plots the shot and provides a trace of the muzzle movement before, during, and after shot break. SCAT captures many metrics for each shot. Among the most important is the trace length, also called speed. It's the distance that the aiming point travels on a target in the 1 second before the shot release. We've seen how important a stable hold is. This is a measurement of that. The smaller the number, the more stable your hold is. For 300 meters, this number should ideally be in the 300s or 200s. The hold area, indicated by the green line, should be smaller than a 10 ring. Another important metric is aiming stability. For each shot, SCAT plots the aiming center during the 1 second before shot release. This is indicated by the cross on the target. For the string, SCAT creates a group from these aiming centers and shows you the size of this group. This metric indicates how consistent your aiming is. You want this number to be under the size of the X-ring, which is 50 millimeters. A third important metric that SCAT provides is shot deviation. On the target, the center of aim is the cross, and the point of impact is the dot. Shot deviation is a measurement of the distance between them. You want these two to be as close to each other as possible. Shot deviation measures the quality of your follow-through, as well as the size of the overall hold. For 300-meter shooting, this number should ideally be under 20. SCAT also measures the group size of all shots in a string. Think of this as an aggregate metric. A small group means that you've done well in all other metrics. Ideally, group size should be at or under the size of the X-ring, which is 50 millimeters. The group sizing SCAT is not the same as live fire groups because it doesn't take into account inconsistencies in ammunition and recoil. I highly recommend SCAT, but it is expensive. If you're not ready to invest that much money into dry firing, you may choose to spend much less on another training aid called Mantis X. Mantis X is essentially an accelerometer that tracks muzzle movement and sends the data stream to a phone app via Bluetooth. It's much cheaper than SCAT, but also less capable. Because it's only an accelerometer and cannot see the target, it knows the muzzle is moving but not the absolute position of the muzzle. It's mainly designed for action shooting disciplines. For the purpose of position shooting, Mantis X can measure hold stability and give each shot a score up to 100 points. In prone shooting, you want to achieve a score in the high 99s, such as 99.5 and 99.8. Here's a demo of Mantis X in action. Note that my rifle has both a SCAT and a Mantis X installed. The Mantis X is installed on the fore end of the stock and is obscured by the barrel. Let's take a look. As you can see, for this shot, Mantis X gave me a satisfactory score of 99.8. Now let's talk a little bit about goal setting in Swiss shooting. Let's say that you've decided to invest time to improve your performance in Swiss shooting. What kind of scores should you be striving to achieve? The best way to get an idea of what committed shooters can achieve is by looking at scores and major competitions. One good example is the Vancouver International match. This match has the advantage of having a good cross-section of participants from Switzerland and abroad, but also not too large. In a given category, the median score is a good indication of what a moderately committed shooter is able to achieve. I define moderately committed as someone who invests time into training. Here's an example from 2024 in the K31 P90 category. These two rifles are grouped together because they are thought to have a similar level of performance. Out of 95 participants, the highest score is a 98, and the median score is a 95. No one got a score lower than a 95. Now this is a match in which you get 2 tries, so the scores are a bit higher than they otherwise would be. We can subtract 1 to account for this fact, resulting in a score of 94. And this is consistent with the results I've seen in the past. A score of 94 means that you're able to stay in the 9 ring consistently. In general, a moderately committed shooter should be able to score in the low to mid 90s. If you shoot in K31, this should be your goal. In the standard rifle category, out of 152 participants, there are 5 100s, and the median score is 98. No one scored lower than 97. Again, to account for the fact that people get 2 tries, we subtract 1 from the median score, resulting in 97. We can tell from this that consistent 95 plus scores are achievable for the moderately committed standard rifle shooter. If you invest time in training, that's a good goal to strive for. We can also tell that 100s are very much possible with the standard rifle shooting the GP11 ammo. Also note that there's a 3-point difference between the K31 and standard rifle. Incidentally, when the two categories of rifles shoot head-to-head in a competition, such as the Freundschaftsschießen at our club, the standard rifle gets a 3-point handicap. From these scores, we can see that this handicap is not arbitrary and is actually pretty fair. If you're serious about improving your shooting, you may find it beneficial to look beyond the club and occasionally participate in other shooting disciplines. You get to meet new people, hear new perspectives, learn new techniques, and have a lot of fun in the process. The Appleseed Project is a nationwide organization that promotes fundamental marksmanship. They have events all over the country, the closest to us being in Piru, California, which is held once a month. This is a great way to learn shooting fundamentals, and it requires only very low-cost equipment. At 1022, with iron sights will serve you well. They teach you to shoot in 3 positions using a sling, and then you shoot a moderately challenging qualification course to earn a marksmanship badge. During lunch, the instructors tell stories from the American Revolutionary War. You're going to have a lot of fun. In fact, Appleseed is how I got into competitive shooting. I highly recommend it to the novice shooter. Another similar venue is CMP's Rimfire Sporter Clinic. You can use the same equipment as Appleseed, and you also learn to shoot in 3 positions. The difference is that Rimfire Sporter is its own competitive discipline. After the clinic, you participate in a head-to-head match against other attendees. If you're hooked, you can attend future local and national matches in this discipline. Here in SoCal, Burbank Rifle and Revolver Club in Castaic holds a monthly clinic and match. Check them out if you're interested. More advanced shooters could consider taking part in the NRA matches. The benefit to us as Swiss shooters is that these disciplines are the closest to Swiss shooting. The NRA mid-range match is similar to the Swiss big bore Meisterschaft program. And the NRA small bore is similar to small bore Meisterschaft. The skill levels in these matches are very high. When you first participate, you'll likely rank at bottom. If you are a committed shooter, this will motivate you to put in more effort to improve. I know because that's what it did for me. You can use the same guns as Swiss shooting, as long as you shoot with a sling, which the previous 2 venues will give you a very good introduction to. Both of these disciplines also have an F-class equivalent, which allows the rifle to be rested. But F-class is really about the equipment and ammo than about fundamental marksmanship. So it's not really a good way to cross-train for the Swiss shooter. In today's session, we covered many aspects of marksmanship training. We explained what makes training different from plinking. We defined what a shot plan is and established it as the central focus of training. We examined the best practices for both live fire training and dry fire training. We looked at how electronic training aids can make dry fire training more productive. We discussed how to set realistic goals in Swiss shooting. And we enumerated various venues for cross-training to further sharpen our skills. Thank you for watching. If you're interested in participating in Swiss shooting or have questions about shooting in general, please do not hesitate to contact me and the Swiss Athletic Society of Los Angeles. See you on the range.